This is Michael Popok, Legal AF, George Santos. Remember him? You know, in the middle of all of these other Donald Trump-related issues, Waco appearances, indictments in New York, Jack Smith indictments. You may forget there's another grifter in training in the form of George Santos. Is that his name? Could be something with Devalder in it. Who really knows? At the end of the day, who really cares? Let's just get him out of Congress as quick as possible. If the Ethics Committee won't do it, then I assure you the members and voters of the 3rd District in New York are going to do it when his term comes up in just another year and a half or so. But George Santos, continuing the grift, continuing to lie, told the New York Post as recently as a couple of months ago he committed no crimes in Brazil, despite the fact that in January, the Brazilian officials reopened a criminal investigation that had laid dormant for over 10 years because they couldn't find the poor guy. They couldn't find the chap named Devalder, named Santos, and the trail had gone cold, so they sort of half closed the file. Until, lo and behold, George Santos, if that's his real name, popped back up in the news in a big way, running for office and winning the seat in the 3rd District in New York, which led the Brazilian jurisdictional authorities, police and prosecutors, law enforcement, to say, we can read social media. Oh, that looks like the same guy that stole $1,300 off a clothing store clerk using a fake identity and a stolen checkbook back in 2008. And they reopened the case now that they could locate him. So with the prosecutors in Brazil fast on his trail, and while at the same time talking out of one side of his mouth, and Santos telling the media and anybody who would listen that he's not a criminal, very reminiscent of Richard Nixon. I am not a crook. This is George Santos. I didn't commit a crime in Brazil or anywhere else. Well, that's not what his new plea deal says. He is reportedly entering into a plea deal with the Brazilian authorities in which they will agree to a non-prosecution agreement and not take him to trial in return for him confessing that he committed the crime. The crime is using bad checks, stolen checkbooks, and fake identity of an elderly gentleman who his mother cared for. I mean, the grift just gets deeper and deeper, and so does the disgusting lack of ethics and character of one George Santos, who had no moral problems or character failings to stop him from stealing a checkbook belonging to an old man that his mother cared for, and then spending it on not necessities, not food, not tuition, not to help a dying relative with medical care, for $1,300 worth of designer clothing. I mean, is anybody shocked by this? In a small store in a small city in Brazil. And the way it works in Brazil is that it is the poor clerk who gets ripped off, who is basically the victim of the crime, not the store. And in some places like Brazil, they force the clerk to repay the store for the stolen goods. That may have happened here. So let's put that aside for a minute. This poor clerk who got ripped off and then had to repay the store $1,300 because that theft happened on his watch. So the Brazilian prosecutors told George Santos, we'll do this deal with you, maybe, but you got to find the victim, the person you ripped off, the person who probably paid back the store for your stolen goods. And if you could repay him, meaning pay him the money that he paid the store, this poor shop clerk, then we'll consider entering into this deal if you admit that you committed the crime. So we already have reporting that he has located the clerk, has or will repay him. And where's that money coming from? Is that coming from campaign funds, George Santos? Is that coming from the grift that you've done down in Florida with your Ponzi scheme of a investment firm or the Devalder management company or whatever else you're using, trying to make as much money as you can from your political power and political reputation as you can before the voters of New York run you out on a rail? Is that where the money's coming from? Okay, so somewhere the $1,300 is coming from. He located the clerk. He's going to repay the money, but he's going to have to confess that he committed the crime. And the prosecutors will then enter into a non-prosecution agreement. This all goes up to the MAGA-led GOP ethics committee, who Lord knows what they're going to do with that. I mean, if the Democrats are in charge and a Democrat committed this crime, he would be censured or worse by the ethics committee. But that's not going to happen here. We shouldn't expect it to happen here. That's why prosecutors have to step in around the world and around the country to bring these out of control criminal petty thieves to their knees and put them in jail or make them repay the money that they've stolen. That's what's happened with Representative George Santos, a.k.a. DeValder, a.k.a. ripping off an old man his mother used to work with by stealing his checkbook and writing a check for luxury goods in Brazil in 2008, which has now been resolved by him confessing to the crime, notwithstanding all that he told the media, including the New York Post, that he didn't commit a crime ever. Another lie in a series of lies on the back of George Santos. That camel's back has already broken, fractured, and been sent to the emergency room. There's not one more thing that will break the camel's back. It is broken. And that is the reporting we have right now on George Santos from this week. And even though all these other wheels of justice are more important as they relate to Donald Trump and the people at the upper food chain in and around Donald Trump and the various prosecutors and law enforcement that are going after these people, we have to also report on things like George Santos confessing to a crime. I do these hot takes on various topics about every day. And if I'm not doing it, one of my other co-anchors on a podcast on the MeidasTouch network, we call Legal AF, every Wednesdays and Saturdays, they'll do a hot take. Karen Friedman Ignifilo or Ben Mysalis. And then on Wednesdays and Saturdays, we pull it all together and curate the best 5 or 6 stories at the intersection of law and politics. And as practicing lawyers and former prosecutors ourselves, we give you the lowdown and the breakdown. If you like what we're doing, follow us. If you like what I'm doing in particular, you can follow me on all social media, including Twitter, at MS Popok. This is Michael Popok, Legal AF reporting.
Our blue wall stopped the red wave and election deniers got denied election. That's why we're celebrating with the new Democracy Prevails team. We've got lots of work to do, but we should all be proud that when democracy was tested, democracy prevailed. You've earned this. Don't wait. Get yours right now at store.meidastouch.com. That's store.meidastouch.com.